Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing what our actions should be in case we encounter disasters such as fires and earthquakes. This presentation was prepared by the College of Engineering's Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Committee. First, let us define what a disaster is. A disaster is a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or a society involving widespread human, material, economic, or environmental losses and impacts, which exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope using its own resources. Disaster risks. According to RA number 10121, for the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010, disaster risks are the potential disaster losses in lives, health status, livelihood, assets, and services, which could occur to a particular community or a society over some specified future time period. And risk reduction is the concept and practice of reducing disaster risks through systematic efforts to analyze and manage the causal factors of disasters. The objectives of risk reduction are to reduce the exposure of people to hazards, lessen the vulnerability of people and property, manage land and environment properly, and improve preparedness in case of disasters. The overall objective of disaster risk reduction and management is to lessen the adverse impacts of hazards and the probability of disaster. It is with this goal in mind that the college formed the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Committee in 2013. One of the critical tasks for disaster risk reduction is emergency management, which is the organization and management of resources and responsibilities for addressing all aspects of emergencies. In particular, preparedness, response, and initial recovery steps. Today, we will be discussing our responsibilities, especially if the disaster happens when you're in the College of Engineering. The first disaster that we'll be discussing is fire. Quick story. Last 2010, the chemistry building and part of the Quezon Hall caught fire. There's a risk of fire in almost all of the buildings, so we have to be aware of what causes it. The Fire Code of the Philippines classifies the basic fires accordingly. We have Class A for ordinary combustibles, just wood, paper, rubber, fabrics, and many kinds of plastics. Class B, flammable liquids and gases, which include gasoline, oil, paint, lacquer, and tar. Class C, for electrical equipment, such as energized appliances, machines, and extension cords. We have Class D, combustible metals and alloys, such as aluminum powder and magnesium. And Class K, cooking media, which include vegetable oil and animal fats. The college provides fire extinguishers in every area. In the M building, fire extinguishers are located at strategic areas around the building. Most common fire extinguishers are of Class A, B, and C. The next step is knowing how to extinguish fires. There are 5 steps for extinguishing fires. The first one is to determine the type of extinguisher to be used for the fire. Steps 2 to 5 can be memorized using the mnemonic PASS, ASS. Pull the locking pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze and hold the discharge lever, and sweep from side to side. And there's a warning that you should only use the fire extinguisher so you can get out of the area. Do not stay to put out the fire if you are not trained for it. Again, you may only use the fire extinguisher to get out of the burning area. Please do not stay to put out the fire if you are not a trained fireman. The college has trained personnel to handle the fire extinguishers in case of fire.
In case of fire, the only goal is to get out of the building quickly. Once you hear an alarm, immediately take action. If you are in a room filled with smoke, crawl low. Cover your mouth and nose with a moist or wet cloth to avoid suffocation. Do not pause to collect all of your things before evacuating. Follow the signages and instructions of your marshals. Have the fire safety officer sound the alarm and call the fire department for help. If you are stuck in a room with a hot doorknob, even if it's just warm, do not open it. The fire is hungry for oxygen, so don't feed it by opening the door. Instead, find an alternate exit route. You may need to break the windows for this. If you are still in the building and your only route is blocked, find the fire extinguisher and operate if you have been trained. Elevators should never be used in case of a fire. Head for the nearest exit stairs.
The other disaster that we will prepare for are earthquakes. The Philippines is prone to earthquakes because of our location in the Ring of Fire. Now let's discuss what to do before an earthquake. First, know earthquake hazards in your area. There is a hazard for the University of the Philippines Diliman since we are close to the West Marikina Valley Fault. 2. Follow structural design and engineering practices when constructing a house or a building. 3. Evaluate the structural soundness of buildings and important infrastructure. 4. Strengthen or retrofit if necessary. If you notice any structural issues in our building, and I know there are many, do not hesitate to inform our faculty members and staff. Other things to take note of are securing objects that are stored in or fixed on to the building. Heavy furniture and cabinets must be strapped or bolted to the walls or the ground. Check the stability of hanging objects like ceiling fans and chandeliers. Store properly harmful chemicals and flammable materials in the lowermost shelves. The previous items must be addressed by the department and its staff. However, we would appreciate if you can bring to our attention critical safety issues that we may have missed. Now, here's what you should be doing before an earthquake. First, familiarize yourself with the exit routes, especially if it is your first time in that area. Floor plans are strategically located within the building premises. You must also know where the first aid kits, fire extinguishers, alarms, and communication devices are located. Currently, each wing of each floor has a fire extinguisher along the hall. Some laboratories also have their own fire extinguishers inside the rooms. Also, when you do have the opportunity, participate in regular earthquake drills. If at any time during your stay in the building, whether you are sitting in a lecture class or performing an experiment, you must do what is required of all occupants of the building during drills, so that you are. The previous items must be addressed by the department and its staff. However, we would appreciate if you can bring to our attention critical safety issues that we may have missed. Now, here's what you should be doing before an earthquake. First, familiarize yourself with the exit routes, especially if it is your first time in that particular area. Floor plans are strategically located within the building premises. You must also know where the first aid kits, fire extinguishers, alarms, and communication devices are located. Currently, each wing of each floor has a fire extinguisher along the hall. Some laboratories also have their own fire extinguishers inside the rooms. Also, when you do have the opportunity, participate in regular earthquake drills. If at any time during your stay in the building, whether you are sitting in a lecture class or performing an experiment, you must do what is required of all occupants of the building during drills so that you are prepared for possible real-life scenarios. If you are not in a structurally sound building, you should move to an open area. If driving, do not attempt to cross bridges or overpasses which may have been damaged. Move away from steep slopes that may be affected by landslides. And if you are near the shore, move to higher ground so that you can avoid tsunamis. Also, stay away from the following: trees, power lines, posts, walls, glass panes, other structures that may fall or collapse.
In case of an earthquake drill, the alarm will be sounded to signify the occurrence of an earthquake. At this period, you should duck, cover, and hold, as you would during an actual earthquake. Once the alarm ends, you may start falling in line and heading to the nearest exit. Do not run. Look for the signage to the emergency muster area and follow the instructions of the marshals. Even if it's hot outside, do not move into the shade under the trees. You wouldn't want to be standing there when the aftershocks come.
Another scenario is if you find yourself inside a weak and old building after an earthquake. You must take the fastest and safest way out. Get out calmly in an orderly manner and use the stairs if needed, and never use elevators. Also, do not enter damaged buildings. Do not rush to the exit, as this may cause a stampede and block the exit. Most importantly, do not panic. It is important to consider that after an earthquake, the first thing to check is if you have injuries. Do this before you assist others. Next is to inspect the utilities in the area for water and electrical line damages. Additionally, check for fire or possibilities of fire, especially with the dislodgement of sources of fuel. In the case of actual fire, have it controlled. Also, make sure to check the head count once at the muster area. Everyone must be accounted for. If anyone is missing, report to the responder in your group so that he or she may take appropriate action. If you are capable, clean up chemical spills to avoid any chain of unwanted events. Gather information and disasters prevention instructions from battery operated radios and obey public safety precautions. So what if you need to evacuate your current location? Two things you have to consider is a written message that will be left in the location for rescuers to take note of, and a survival kit. Ideally, the survival kit must be prepared beforehand, especially in households, to contain materials that you will need for the next 72 hours. The most important items in this kit are food and water. It is suggested that you pack 2 gallons of water in small, easy open containers, as well as 18 food bars per person. Additional things that you may need are classified according to use. For warmth, ponchos or raincoats with hoods, an insulating sleeping bag, hot packs or body warmers, and a tent must be included. Tools or devices that can be used to improvise are also important. Consider packing in a Swiss knife, FM radio, pen and paper, rope, whistle, pliers, duct tape, plastic sheets, dust masks, and gloves. It is ideal that you also keep yourself hygienic with personal supplies of toilet paper, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, wet wipes, hand sanitizer, garbage bags, first aid kits, and a shovel for digging sanitation holes. Finally, bring a flashlight with rechargeable batteries, a box of waterproof matches, lighter, candles, and a glow stick. It is said that self-sufficiency for 72 hours is absolutely crucial for survival. If you need more information about this, you can search different resources for preparedness. Before we end, we'd like to show you the composition of the College of Engineering DRRM Committee. The organizational structure of the DRRM Committee is shown. Familiarize yourself with the names of the department coordinator and subcommittee heads for warning, evacuation, fire safety, first aid, and search and rescue.
The department has prepared the floor plans for the evacuation routes of the DMMME building. The following illustrations are just examples. Remember to bring whatever is already on you. Do not start collecting your things, as you must focus on the emergency at hand. Your things will not save you. Remember to fall in line to exit, so as to not to cause injuries. Walk briskly, but do not run. Also be mindful of the hazards, especially when construction and repair activities are ongoing.
This is for the lower ground floor, which houses the pilot plant. 2 exit routes are identified and both lead to the upper ground floor. In this slide, the 2 exit routes are on the same level and both lead to the parking area. All other floors will have to exit through this floor or the upper ground floor before proceeding to the muster or evacuation area. Shown in this slide are the 3 exit points for the second floor. Shown on this slide are the 2 exit points for the third floor, which leads to the second floor and the upper ground floor.
Once you have exited the DMMME building, please look for the signs towards the emergency muster area so that all evacuees may be accounted for. Our main muster area is located at the parking area in front of the building lobby. At the muster area, make sure to fall in line as instructed by the marshals to facilitate accurate head counting. Wait for clearance before dispersing.
Since the majority of you are not trained to handle disasters, it is best to inform the emergency team about what you find after a disaster or a drill. Of course, we do not want disasters to happen, but they are universal truth, and it is better to be prepared than to deal with the consequences of being unprepared. Organize and be prepared. Thank you for your time.